Oh, howdy folks, welcome to another episode of DevOps Diaries. This week I'm joined by Anna Moreno. Anna, hi.
Hi.
And welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited for you to be here as well. It feels like we've been collaborating on a bunch recently.
Right.
Yeah,
Surprise.
that's a good thing though for the listeners that Anna recently joined GearSet on. And myself, obviously, on a Q3 launch webinar. Go back and check that out because that was a really cool conversation. But we thought, why not extend the conversation and bring the conversation here? Anna, for those folks, who are you?
Who am I? That's a long story. Well, it began. No, I'm just kidding.
A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
So I'm Anna. I am currently a Salesforce release engineer at GitLab. I have been in the Salesforce space for almost 6 years now, I think. I forget. I've been an admin of some sort for, I think, 6-7 years now. Math is not my strong suit. That's why I became an admin. But I have loads of experience doing all sorts of other stuff. I'm one of those accidental admins that just kind of fell face first into DevOps and have really loved what I'm doing in DevOps. So,
and you work for a DevOps company.
I know,
it's pretty crazy.
DevSecOps company too. I remember when I joined GitLab and my parents asked me, what does DevSecOps mean? And I was like, that's a good question. I was like, how do I explain this to an attorney and to a physician that have no idea what this world is like? And I mean, my mom apparently has been explaining to people that I work in cybersecurity, and I was like, no, I don't. I was like, please don't say that to anybody, because that's a far cry from what I do. Maybe one day, but not right now.
All right, I'm going to put you on the spot then. What's DevSecOps?
That's a great question. Honestly, this is why I'm not in sales. This is why I work on the other side of things. Terrible. Don't ask me that question because I can't answer it. I answered that question when GitLab interviewed me, but that's been over a year and a half now. And anybody who's watching this from GitLab, I'm really sorry. Like, don't listen to this part.
You had to make room for other things, you know.
But actually, yes. So many things.
Okay, what's your accidental admin journey then? Everybody's is different. Let's hear yours.
Oh yeah. So my background is actually in the arts. So I have a bachelor's in photography and graphic design and a master's degree in the history of photography. So I was way outside of tech for a long time. I went to college in New York, came back to Texas, went to my master's degree in London, came back to Texas, and all throughout that journey, I thought I was going to eventually join the FBI. Because I really wanted to work in art crime. That was one of the things that I really wanted to do. I was super passionate. My master's thesis was on art crime and fraud in photography, and how a couple different cases have shaped photography in the last 30-40 years. That didn't happen because you have to do all these things. Obviously, you have to apply to the FBI. You also have to do a physical fitness test. And this is also 15 years ago. This is a long time ago. I just got really disillusioned with the arts eventually. I just had some jobs kind of fall through and nothing really panned out. And I got to a point where I was like, you know what, I'm sick of this shit. So I happened to have a really lucky streak where my cousin, she's like my sister, got into the program here at UT Austin. Their history PhD program was like, hey, I'm moving to Austin. I need a roommate. You want to move? And I was like, sure. So I started applying to tech jobs left and right, kind of as one does back in 2017. And I started working for an ad tech company that specialized in Facebook and Instagram ads. They're called Tiger Pistol, and they're awesome. And I was number.
As well.
Yeah. It's a cool story too. But I was there for 4 years, and in year 3, right before the pandemic, we lost our admin. So we were using Zoho as a CRM. As we had been acquired by a PE firm, and we grew, and we really needed a CRM, and Zoho was base here in Austin, and they made a pitch. And, at the time we really didn't need something as robust as Salesforce. So we built it ourselves, which is like crazy to think about, that you just build a CRM with no like implementation help. And we lost all the people that helped build it, and we really needed somebody who was technically minded and pretty thorough in their like processes. And I literally was like, me, I will be your admin. Make me. I was tired of doing what I was doing, because again, startup vibes. You just kind of do everything, and I was like, I don't want to do what I'm doing now. Let's do it. So I took over as the Zoho admin, and it was literally like trial by fire, because I had no experience being an admin. It had been a long time since I had done anything IT related. And then come that fall, it was 2019. Fall of 2019, our CEO came to us and was like, I'm tired of Zoho. Zoho sucks, which is like, was super just subjective, for him. It just wasn't fitting the needs that we needed. And He was like, find me something new, essentially. And so we went and we looked at a couple different CRMs, obviously the big two, HubSpot and Salesforce at the time. And we eventually landed on Salesforce, and we got some crazy deal at the end, because it was the end of the year, closing for the year, and we got some really, really good discounts for both sales and service, for an org of 50 some odd people. So I just got thrown into that literally and helped with an implementation over like 7-8 weeks, something like that, starting in January. Oh yeah, it was crazy. It was myself, my boss, who was really just more from a project management perspective, and then a project manager with an implementation group, and a developer. And it was just the three of us, basically. She was an admin, and we had the developer, and we were just like hammering away at building sales and service. And it was crazy. And so
that was thing, make it work.
That's literally what it was. And but it was a great experience, because that's literally how I learned Salesforce, was just tinkering and tooling around in Salesforce, all while also doing Trailhead basically in parallel. So over the course of like 6 months, I basically learned Salesforce day in. I was spending like eat, sleeping, and breathing Salesforce sort of thing, like Salesforce, I was dreaming about flows. Like, it was crazy. And I eventually left that summer, because I was like, I need a break. My brain is like broken. I need some time to myself. So I took a little bit of time off that summer and took the exam, passed on the first try, which is like shocking for me, but I was determined. Exam? Yeah. The SCA.
That's a tough one. I think people don't realize how hard that exam is.
I was nervous, and I'm not a good like test taker, so I was freaking out the whole time. I was literally sitting there like this when my scores came up, and anybody who's taken a Salesforce exam knows that they get you because they put the feedback before they give you your results, and you're just sitting there like, what? That's not my results. I don't want to give you feedback right now.
Tell me if I passed.
Yeah, seriously. But I passed on the first try, and then I jumped to a company called Octane. They had a junior admin position. My cousin she happened to leave her PhD program, wanted to join tech, because of course tech pays a lot more than a PhD program does. And she was like, hey, we've got a junior admin position open. You want to interview? I was like, absolutely. And I was there for a couple years, and that was honestly probably some of the best times I've had. I loved my team at Octane. I miss them so much. I talk to them almost every day. And then I came to GitLab to be our release engineer, and that has been an adventure in and of itself, which is crazy. So yeah, the liberal arts to tech pipeline is real, y'all. I know a lot of people who have done that.
I'm also super curious, and like, I really kind of want to derail from the DevOps thing and go art. For sure. Tell me more about art.
Oh yeah! Oh my gosh, totally. Yeah. Yeah, so I really specifically looked at cases of what is it? I want to say duplicates. It's not the correct word in my head, but that's the word that I'm going with. There were three main cases that I looked at. One that happened in like I want to say the 40s. Yes, 40s, 50s, something like that. One that happened in like the 80s, and then one was a little more recent. They basically all revolved around the negatives for a couple different artists that had kind of passed around through different hands. So the first one was Man Ray. He was a prolific kind of avant-garde artist, photographer who made all these like very beautiful photographs, but a lot of his negatives ended up being left in I want to say it was in Paris, kind of during the war, because he had to leave, and because he was American, so he left, and he left a bunch of stuff behind, like an apartment. So the people who owned the apartment found all the stuff, and I think they just like sold it off, something like that, and eventually it found its way into the hands of somebody who decided to start printing these negatives, and they started making copies that were not true copies, but they started finding their way onto the market that as if they were real live like prints from the artist. So there are still copies that exist in the world that are not genuine Man Ray prints, which is like crazy. But that's the first one. The second one, there's an archive. I'm like, what's the archive in Rochester? Rochester Archive, New York, Kodak. So the Rochester University, or University of Rochester, excuse me, has the Kodak archive, which is like millions of negatives. But it includes a couple different artists, and like I am currently blanking on the second artist who I did my my research on, but
it's
essentially
been 15 years, so
it's been a long time. Yeah, but same sort of thing where like students had access to the Kodak archive negatives, so they were able to go in and print, make copies of all of these famous like images, and a professor there knowingly made prints of negatives of big named images and sold them as if they were real. And like it's crazy that this happens, but you know, people are people, and they're going to do what they're going to be opportunists. And then the last one was a little weirder. So actually I have a couple. There was like a weird story where these two guys who were business partners made fake like Victorian like kid photos, were like basically like kids like on the street. They were dressed up as if they were like vagrants, and they were children, and sold them as if they were like this random undiscovered artist from like the 1800s, which photography was around then. But they weren't. They were like printed like in the like 60s or something like that, and they were completely fake. And they went to court. They went to jail, and everybody who had all these photos were like, well, what do we do with these? These are fake. So those are actually really cool because you can see some of those. The Victorian Albert Museum actually has some of those. So I have like photos of those that were in my thesis. And then there's been like other artists who have had fraud and all this stuff. But yeah, I don't really know how it happened and how I got into it, but I got into it. And everybody, like I was in London a couple years ago for a wedding of one of my classmates, and my professor was like, so are you working for the FBI? And I was like, no, I work in Salesforce. And they're like, what's that? I go, long story.
FBI is a little bit easier to explain.
It is so much easier.
Salesforce.
So much easier. So much easier. Yeah.
What would be like your adjacent explanation for FBI and Salesforce terms?
Oh,
Have
God.
you even thought about that?
No. I jokingly say that, and I tell people this all the time who like aren't in the tech world. I was like, I basically click a lot of buttons and make sure things get from point A to point B. That's basically, and they're like, and people who are in tech, they're like, that's an oversimplification of what you do. I was like,
yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
but also the train keeps moving.
That is the goal, right? That
Yeah.
is ultimately, that is the goal of what we're doing.
Yeah.
What we're doing here. That
Yeah.
is the goal of what we're doing here. But admin
Yeah.
to release engineer,
Yeah.
like what? Tell me a little bit about how that happened, because one of the questions I get fairly regularly is like, do you need like a dedicated release engineer? And if I wanted to be a dedicated release engineer or something of that ilk, how do I get there?
Yeah. So honestly, it was by happenstance. So I really loved being an admin. I really feel that my time as an admin was awesome, for lack of a better term. You know, awesome admins out there. But it was really the time that I got to grow as like in my career, but also like in the Salesforce space, because I really got to tinker and again tool around in Salesforce to really learn. I honestly, in the first like year and a half at Octane, I grew leaps and bounds because of the amount of work that we were handed. So granted, like every situation is going to be different. We had 3 Salesforces, which is like mental. But I was able to, you know, see unique differences in each of them, and we each had a case for all the different things. You know, we had a lot of stuff going on. So I was able to kind of see and think differently. And as I progressed in my time there, I was doing bigger and bigger stuff. I even had the opportunity to do Apex Academy, which I highly recommend to anybody. And that's when I got to do actually some development. So I got to kind of merge both sides of those like of like, I think of the Salesforce coin essentially, you know, and I was an admin developer, as people love to say. But I think once I got that developer side of things, I started getting a little bored. And I remember having this conversation with my boss at the time, because I was like, what's next? Like, what's the like growth trajectory? Like, what will there be? And I think for me personally, I kind of saw that things were going to stagnate. But I had luckily been like in that last year, been the project manager, so to speak, for us to roll out DevOps Center. Now, everybody who has worked in Salesforce, who has at least worked in DevOps Center, knows and has opinions about DevOps Center. We as an Octane team gave some pretty stringent commentary back to Salesforce about it at the time. But that was my project, and because we kind of would do that like quarterly or like half. And it was really cool, and that was really my first intro into DevOps. Like, I had never worked in GitHub. I had never, you know, had a branching strategy. Like, things like that were super new to me. And I got to a point where I was like, well, this is actually like, this has piqued my interest. Like, this is cool. I don't know how this will roll out, but, you know, we'll see. One calendar year later, I kind of started putting out feelers for jobs, because that was really when like the boredom like started hitting. We also had stagnated with our new builds, like new org build project. And so I was like, I really don't know what's happening here, but I think I really want something new. And GitLab approached me. They had a position for a dedicated release engineer. Now, the reason we have one specifically is because of compliance, like controls. We have to have those differences in change management. So whoever built it can't be the same person who deploys it. But that's not the case at every company, obviously. And obviously all public companies are a little bit different. But that's just how our SOX controls work. And then I joined, and I took over for somebody who had basically been in that position just for, like, he was meant to be temporary. He's an admin, and he loves being an admin. But he was like, yeah, you're way better at this than me. Like, please take this off my hands and do what you want with it. And I kind of did that. I just like took it and ran with it. But I do hear that. Like, I've actually been getting a lot of messages from people about, like, do you need a dedicated person? And I think the question is hard to answer because, like, again, every team is different. Every company is different. You know, the necessity for one person is really based on so many variables that, you know, we just happen to have the room for one and the necessity for one. But I also did a lot of admin work in the beginning. So that was a tough pill for me to swallow at first because that's not what I wanted. But I have been able to kind of divest myself of some of those things and be like a true release engineer, which is awesome.
Yeah. I think you kind of people have to be flexible, right? They need to fit a mold, like even in a company like the size scale of GitHub, GitLab. I have to edit that one out. You said GitHub earlier. I'd never touched GitHub before, and I was like, that was the last thing I said. I did just do a training session before this, which was sorry GitHub and
it's fine. Hey, I get it.
And yeah, that flexibility is like super important to like take the next steps like in your career that you want, right? And again, that story, you know, you were able to divest yourself, but you have to kind of show the value of focusing on these things. And you don't need to tell me about the value of DevOps and doing it properly and having somebody to like oversee that, especially in many organizations. I think the release, in my mind, that there will be some cases, like you say, that it's always needed because of compliance or what have you else. Often I hear because some other platforms out there which will remain nameless are quite difficult for people to use.
Right.
The point is that everybody should be invested on this journey in some way, shape, or form. And in some instances, most organizations or a lot of organizations won't need a dedicated release engineer because it's baked into the culture of the Salesforce team at the end of the day.
And I think that's what's really important because, like, so my former manager, Corbin, when we talked about like DevOps process and kind of like what we envisioned, at least for for 6 months kind of planning, he explained to me that like his engineering team when he was at Spotify was like a round robin. So essentially they had one dedicated person, like I think every release week, who would manage the release. And then it would be a different person every single time, which I thought was, that's a great idea, especially if you don't want to invest in, another body. Say you don't have the money to invest in somebody else, or you don't necessarily think you need it. That's a great option. But like for me, people are like, do you have stuff to do all the time? I go, yes. Like I literally have so much work constantly. And there's lulls some days, but the days where I don't have much quote unquote to do, are, balanced by the days where like I'm online late, we're getting things done, we have to do all these kooky things to get the release out. There's balance for sure.
Sure. Yeah. So what does a release engineer do on a day-to-day basis on the days that you do not have these lulls, these occasional lulls? What does one do?
I think I said in the webinar that like life is kind of boring, but it's really not. It's I'd say that I prep for releases. So we do a weekly release on Wednesdays. So our calendar looks it sounds a little rushed, because we basically, as soon as like Wednesday rolls around, we'll still take some stuff in Wednesday, Thursdays, but basically Thursdays like restarts our clock. So Thursday, Friday, Monday, Tuesday, we're validating, we're making sure that there are sign-offs, since we have to get, multiple levels of sign-offs for all of our issues. There's like a lot of review. I do some like merge request reviews, like PR reviews, those sorts of things that can take up a significant part of the day. I do keep part of my day open for emergency releases because God forbid we've got something that needs to go out now. Especially in North America, like our time, I'm the one person that's online, so I got to support for any of those sorts of emergency, like drop of the hat sort of changes. And then the other stuff is kind of like, I don't want to say it's filled with fluff, but sometimes it can be. I'm doing documentation, so I'm updating our handbook because GitLab, we live and die by our public handbook. We have an internal one too, which is just like for us, but most of our stuff is public. So I'm making sure that our externally facing like Salesforce page is up to date. And which is like, that's like a really long page. And we still have a lot of stuff that we're working on. So I'm making sure our processes are currently documented. If there's not something, getting it documented, getting sign-offs for those. And then also just trying to stay up to date. So I'm trying to study for my deployment lifecycle and
Application architect.
Application architect. I was like, what's the? I was like, I know it's 3 words, and there's an and somewhere in there. But yeah, I'm working on that, and like that's taking a little bit of time too. But I feel like going through the motions of like what I'm doing right now is helping with that. I like took a pop quiz for like one of the sections, and I passed. So I was like, okay, we're good on that front. I was like, next one here. But every day is different. Like, and that's like, I feel like so cliche to say out loud, but it's true because Wednesdays are usually pretty cut and dry. We got a release, like Pooja, my teammate, starts in IST, like she'll start in India, and then anything she can't get done, I will do, and then we'll roll over into Thursday and then start the shenanigans all over again. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm really curious, like, what does good look like for y'all in terms of we take requests, this is how we know what work is going in this release with, or this is the parameter for I need to drop what I'm doing and get this out on those days that aren't release days.
Yes. So I can take the second half a little bit easier. So we do have a priority scale. So basically if it's a P0, which is like a DEFCON 1 sort of thing, basically something's broken, and it's usually like a financially related field or process, and we got to fix it now. Like that process we have pretty down pat. Like sign-offs for it are a little more flexible because if we can't get a hold of somebody, it's okay because we can just go back and get those sign-offs. For our audit purposes, like we overly document because all of our issues are where where our auditors, will take a look. So again, like just overkill, but it's better to over document than under document. So that process is actually very easy because it's the same every time if it happens. For regular releases, we're a little more flexible because we have, I think at last I checked, we have about 30 people across the team, both contractors and full-time employees, and that's a mishmash of developers and admins. More developers than admins, I'll tell you. And so we have so much work running concurrently that some people will get stuff done. Like the admins approvals for admins is not as detailed as it is for developers, because for developers, we have a peer review built in. So every merge request has to be reviewed by a secondary developer because we have branch protections for master. So that takes extra time. We're thinking of rolling out a process to like start using GitLab's dedicated AI. It's called Duo, to start reviewing and like providing feedback on a lot of our merge requests. So that will be something cool, like AI related, not necessarily approve, but actually just give feedback so that it will take some time off of, the bandwidth, like just cut some of that down. Because again, we just have so many people reviewing. And then admins, they don't have a peer review necessarily, so I do a lot of those reviews, but we're trying to build that into our process so that they do start approving and reviewing, because I think it's worth, I think it's a good skill for people to have the ability to read XML, because if you can read XML, you can read Apex. That's all I always say. And it's one of those things that we are slowly rolling out, but it's harder just because as admins, they've got a whole lot of stuff to do. And sometimes their file changes are so large because they're changing profiles, they're changing layouts, you got a whole extra boatload of stuff that looking in where the changes are, like the diffs can be so much larger. So we try and take things until Monday. That's usually when I say, like, have it to me by Monday so we can validate on Tuesdays, or like start doing Mondays, validate Tuesdays. If we run into trouble, we can fix things Tuesdays, and then Wednesdays will roll out. That schedule is never adhered to. Maybe like once or twice a month we'll do it, which I think is awesome. But when we don't, then things can kind of like get a little crazy. But having a tool like GearSet has really helped us because we can see those problems ahead of time, and 9 times out of 10 we're not hitting the same roadblocks and failures that we were previously when we were getting to prod, because we were using change sets. So we would never know if an Apex class was like a test class was gonna fail. Now we'll know ahead of time, and they can fix it ahead of time before we run all of our tests in prod. So the failure rate for Apex in prod is actually a lot lower now than it used to be, like a year ago at this time. So that for me is awesome. And if we can
shift left.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's true. It's really cool to see that, though. And I think a lot of people have noticed that too. Unfortunately, and I think everybody's biggest gripe is just the amount of time it takes to validate. Because we have over 1,000 tests. We have, like, last I checked, like 1,045 tests.
It's quite a lot of tests.
That's grown in the year and a half I've been here. It went from being like 600, 700 tests, and it's just progressively just gotten worse and worse. Yeah. And I'm like, where are all these tests coming from? Stop it. But Salesforce, it just takes forever to run those tests, and that slows us down. So we're thinking of doing like test suite, testing, but that's for every like merge. And so, there's pros and cons behind that. So, but we're at a stable place that we can start maybe tweaking things. But yeah, the last minute changes are not good. I hate those.
Yeah, but continual iterative improvement, right?
Oh,
That's what DevOps is all about.
100%.
You get things, you make a big change, see how things are working, then refine. 1% better every day.
That's our team. Oh, for sure. We try to not make as many big changes, especially like process wise, because it can derail everybody, because they're like, we just changed something the other day, when it was like really 3 months ago, But if we document really well and we explain it, we train people, things usually go off without a hitch. So
documentation is such an underappreciated thing, right? I had another guest on this podcast say, document not just for yourself, but for the poor soul that comes in after you and has to fix it, and sometimes that poor soul is you.
Yep.
So
it's true, because I remember building things at Octane and being like, what did I do here? I don't remember what I did here. And I was the queen of documentation at Octane. Everybody on my team was always like, how do you write things so fast? I was like, look, I used to be in academia. I love writing. Like, I've written a book, okay? Like, this is not new to me. But technical writing is so different. It's so different. Yeah. And it is tough, because like sometimes you want to make sure that you're writing for the average reader. I think that's also one of those things that like I really enjoy doing, because you don't want to be overly technical, but also there are times where you've got to be technical, and you're okay just being like, yeah, this is how this method is, how this method works, etc. Apex comments, those are also really fun. Yeah.
One of the other things that you said is you have like a lot of concurrent work streams going on at any one time. Mm-hmm. I find like a lot of folks, especially when they enter like the DevOps worlds, that that typically introduces things like merge conflicts and the like. How do you successfully manage concurrent work streams and making sure that you're not constantly handling merge conflicts? That's something that I speak to when a lot of like big enterprise Salesforce customers just like, we spend half of our release days, if not a full day, dealing with merge conflicts.
Yeah.
How do we get out of that cycle?
Yeah, I think that is like a necessary evil. It's like it's a part of what like our life is, because we have so the way that our team is structured is we have 5 pods, and you've got groups, just like smaller groups of team members, like all that are working on different parts of the business essentially, but we have one pipeline, which is great. And we're about to introduce 2 long-term projects, which is going to be fascinating. Yeah, I know. I'm really interested to see how this goes. It's going to be fine.
Rebase City.
Yeah. But merge conflicts are interesting, because this is one of those things I get on like my team's case a lot, because what happens, I think, oftentimes, even with like having a tool like GearSet, is that people are just trying to rocket through, trying to get things done, because again, we do have a big sense of urgency because we have so much work, that they're not thinking about what other other teams are doing, like other pods, excuse me, are doing. And that obviously boils down to like communication and also understanding like the like larger picture of what is happening. So like a great example is recently we just uninstalled a massive package that had like over 1,000 dependencies, and it's wild. Yeah.
I'm grimacing just thinking about it.
We're actually working on a pipeline reconciliation because some stuff we had to do like in UI deletions, and then just like we didn't do. It's trust me.
It's fun times.
Yeah. I've had some very very interesting conversations with my teammates. I'm like, you get to do this, not me. But I'm here for you. But
Thoughts and prayers.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Bye. No, everyone's doing a really good job. But what's happened is like we actually have pulled not just that out, but there's 2 that are in the pipeline. And since we're in the block period, where we're not making any massive changes just in case something financially related breaks, those like remaining 2 packages haven't actually been uninstalled out of production. So we haven't been able to really feed that back down yet. So when people are moving their stuff through the pipeline that weren't on the team that knew that there were 2 packages removed, they haven't been merging the conflicts correctly. So they're pushing things back into the pipeline that were recently removed. So like fields that were removed or like random lines and stuff like that. And it's actually becoming a bit of a nightmare. And so basically told everybody, like, you have to look at every single conflict line. Even if it's just like 1 or 2 conflicts that have come out, you have to look at them. And if you have a question, just ask. Like, we have so many team members, somebody is bound to know. And it's helped a lot just by saying like, hey, be open. We have
look at the documentation.
Yeah, that too. We have so many boards too. I mean, like, we got so much going on. I'm just like, you have to know what we're talking about. Like that we've removed 2 packages in the last month and a half, on top of the big one, over the last 3 months. So that's been interesting. But merge conflicts, I will say, like, just being able to see those now, like, and presented the way that we see them now, we never had that previously. And so that caused so much more problems because we used to have someone manually basically commit their changes and make sure that everything was ready to go with what only needed to go into production, and then revert back to like the previous state where like the in-flight work was. I know. It was, and that it caused some problems because sometimes we would introduce like Apex that wasn't meant to be there, and we had to go and revert those changes, and fix all that stuff. And now we can really pick and choose and say only this is supposed to go, and it's been a godsend to have a tool like GearSet, and I'm so glad we do. Well, it's changed my life for the better. Mine specifically. I don't know about the rest of my team, but for me, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, we're in good shape here. We're in good shape. Yeah. Excuse me.
You're good.
Yeah, what's kind of your advice to the teams that are looking to overhaul how they're currently doing things? Because it's all well and good, like, buying GearSet or another tool or what have you else, and expecting the world to change just because you have a new tool, right? That's something that I think a lot of people see, and there's a bunch of things that need to happen when I look at it, there's a bunch of things that need to happen from a change management perspective and to adopt anything successfully. I mean, look at Salesforce, right? You just look at Salesforce as an example, implementing Service Cloud or a Marketing Cloud. There's a bunch of things that need to happen around that thing to make that successful. Getting a DevOps tool or changing DevOps process, what needs to happen around it to make it successful?
I think I said this during the webinar too. I think there's a lot of like strong communication first, like from the people who need it. So obviously your admins and your developers, those are going to be the people who are going to be in there day in and day out. They're going to be the ones who are going to be in whatever tool you're going to use. You got to make sure that they're really going to be comfortable where they are, but also they understand how to use it. Because not every tool is going to be as, developer friendly or as admin friendly. Everything tries to be, but there's always going to be some level of learning for one side or the other. So listening, and like as communication, listening to their opinions is really important, because it's not just like leadership buying a tool just to buy a tool to say they bought a tool. But on the flip side, I think it's also leadership. It's really important for leadership from a change management perspective to have a solid foundation of what they want. So like, why are you buying this tool? Like, is it just to buy a tool because things are going off the rails, which I have heard that opinion before. And I get it. I get sometimes there is that urgency that you really need to buy something because like everything is on fire and you're trying to like pull everything back in so that nothing is on fire. But if you don't have a solid change management process documented, you don't have the leadership who is, pushing that forward and saying, this is our change management process. This is what we do. This is what we stick to. Let's translate that into a tool. Then things are going to go haywire really quickly. And I think that's mostly because if you do translate, like if you've got a good process, or at least like 75 to 80% of a process, there's got that like last 25 to 20%, whatever. See, I told you I didn't go into Salesforce for math. But you've got that last, fraction that, is still iterative, and like you're comfortable with having that like last bit that's gonna shift. Then I think you're in a good place, because it's not like, oh, we're just gonna go in with 20% of idea and then kind of fly by the seat of our pants, which is when people get in trouble. And I think that's really what you got to do, is you just have to have a good plan. I feel like I've rambled about this, but I think that's a challenge, and like I see that a lot, where you have that disconnect between your, like your actual users and like your leaders who are managing the process and who are the outward facing, proponents of your process. And if you don't have the people who are following the process, the people who are, dying on the hill for the process, then everything is just, it's not going to work. And there's obviously I think there's also some there's leeway there too, because not every process is going to be perfect. I mean, ours is not perfect in the slightest. But we also have things that we have guardrails that we have to stay within, because compliance is everybody tries to make compliance seem like the big bad, but it's not. It's really to keep us safe, as a company, and to keep our team safe. So you also have to make smaller considerations like that. So there's a lot of variables, I think. So if you can get all of those little things in place, then I think you're good. But yeah. I think the biggest thing is just don't just buy a tool to buy a tool, and don't just make a process to make a process. Work with people to get things developed, and then kind of see where it's going to go.
Yeah, truly understand what you're trying to achieve and understand how you can make that thing happen, right? For sure. Yeah, I always find that's usually something to do with the process first, and then a tool to augment your experience. God, augment, I think, should have been the word of the year this year, rather than 6, 7.
I love that one. Oh, I feel so old having to learn about that. I was like, what? I was I feel so dumb too, looking that up on the internet. Gotta love the internet. Yeah.
I don't even know what it means. But,
me neither. It doesn't actually. It doesn't mean anything. To be honest, it means nothing. It's just great. Kids being annoying.
Yes, that checks out.
Yeah. Right.
But yeah, we talk a lot about augmented experiences, right? And especially in the realm of AI these days, and AI is there to augment our experiences. But actually, that's what technology was there for in the first place. 100%. Every piece of technology before AI was to augment an experience, and you can't augment your experience if you don't know what the process and what good looks like to you, what your job to be done is, and how you solve for that.
Yeah, it's wild too, because if you look at some of the greatest technological advances that have come through, and they've all been to augment us, but then you have something new like AI, and it feels like it's just it's gone from this thing that kind of existed to everywhere, which it is everywhere. And obviously everybody has their differences and opinions about AI. Like I have some friends that are like staunchly against AI, which again, I understand. But there's just like, there's again, so many things that it can do. I jokingly say it's my second brain because sometimes I have other things that I got to do, and I'm like, do this for me, you know, like make me a meal plan for my entire week because I can't think of one right now.
Yeah.
So just do this for me, you know, or like I use it to, oh my gosh, documentation related. Like I ask it to make me like a skeleton, you know, of the process, and then I fix things. And honestly, like if I didn't have that, I would be spending so much more time doing things. Like it would. It truly, it does augment my life for sure.
I guess to that point as well, like a lot of the times, like we're not reinventing the wheel,
right?
Like we're tweaking things, right? And you know, AI is not reinventing the wheel. It's not going to give you anything like especially new or novel. Like it's gonna take what kind of works or what it knows works or everything else that is documented on the internet that people say works. Yeah. And then you can tweak it based on the thing. It gives you a starting point, you know? If you don't like the starting point, then write it yourself. Like
exactly.
I don't. Whenever I write something, for example, like I start with my brain and dump everything that I'm thinking into my brain. And if I don't like it, then I'll go make this better.
Yeah, exactly.
Or spell check this for me.
Yeah, fix this here, tweak this. Yeah.
What have I missed? Sometimes I like the responses, sometimes I don't. Like whether they get used or not, you know, like I like to write novel stuff, so I use my brain for it. I don't rely on AI for it.
Yeah, you're like, why not? Why not? Yeah.
And I guess like as a closing kind of point, and I appreciate that we're running out of time a little bit here, but AI in the DevOps process, another question that I get asked a lot. I have opinions, but what's your take?
So
documentation writing aside.
I was gonna say that. I was like, that's there, but like adjacent. I think it works. I think we still have a long way to go like how to use it. So like I used the example earlier that we ourselves are thinking of using our own like company's AI to start doing reviews, to be able to offload some of the brain power that some of our full-time staff needs to be able to actually review Apex. Is it going to be perfect? No. Is there still going to be human intervention needed? Absolutely. Will there be improvements made eventually? Sure. But I will never not trust an AI over a human. To be honest, like I don't think that will ever go away. But I think there are places for it. So like that, like merge request reviews, PR, like, you know, PR reviews, those sorts of things. Like I think that's a place for it. I think, you know, I think I had said this during the webinar too, like before a release, I think it's a great idea because you can find where you might have gaps, you know, in your release, like where like anything might be overlapping, that might be missing. After release, you know, are there any vulnerabilities that you might need to think of? Like, are there edge cases that you may not have thought of? Because again, you have so much human intervention that's occurring throughout the process that like, not everybody's going to catch something, you know, no matter how much of an expert you are in said field, especially in DevOps, not like someone's going to miss something. And that's just because we're human. We err, right. You know, like, and that's right. Okay. AI is not going to be perfect either. I don't know if there's like one perfect spot for it, but I'm excited, like personally, to see how it rolls out for what we want to do. And kind of see how it goes from there. But will it ever make approvals for us? No. And like that will never fly either from a compliance perspective. I can see compliance being like, no, absolutely not. No, I need a human to say yes.
Because the machine said so is not a valid answer.
Exactly. I could never see them saying that. Yeah. So yeah, I think I'm interested to see how like AI in the DevOps space changes over the next couple of years. And things are moving so fast too that there's going to be like an onslaught of new tools and extensions and all of those things that I think will be handy. I mean, like, again, org intelligence is one of those things. I actually might be making a pitch for it at GitLab. So because I think it's really integral to some people understanding like where the connections are made, and I think it has successfully, like, this is not an ad for Gearset, but I do think it is one of those things that it has done successfully what other tools have not done, and being able to say where something's instantiated, where, like, deep in the deepest parts of your org something lives, and that is sometimes so hard to find as a human. I have the hardest time looking for something, and I can see something like that playing like such a huge role in like the development stage of our DevOps process, like before like building basically. So yeah, there's a lot of open space for AI. Yeah. So
watch it all, because it'll get filled.
Oh, it's gonna change. It's gonna change so much in just 5 years or less. It's gonna change, which is scary to say, but everybody knows it's 5 years.
We'll be having a different conversation this time next year.
Exactly.
For sure.
Exactly. Yeah.
For sure. Anna, thank you so much.
Of course.
You're amazing to speak to and so insightful, and thank you for being so gracious with your time. I learned stuff about photography that I didn't know. I learned stuff about DevOps. I learned stuff about GitLab. I learned it all. So
all the things.
Hopefully the listeners have enjoyed too. Have you got like a final mantra that you want to leave people with?
Work smarter, not harder. That is my personal mantra, honestly. If you can literally work smarter, sometimes early on, you're gonna have to do some heavy lifting, but it's gonna make your life way better in the long run. Do it now. So work smarter, not harder. And I've been living by that for like 10 years.
Now, yeah.
So many changes. Oh my gosh.
Anna, thank you so much. Listeners, thank you so much for tuning into this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, like and subscribe on your favorite platform, and I will see you on another episode. Anna, thank you so much.